Women of Reddit, what finally pushed you to leave the relationship? I was burning with fever, too weak to even get water, begging my boyfriend to stay with me for just 1 hour. He looked at my sweat-soaked sheets with disgust and asked if I had wet myself. Then he left me there, completely alone and helpless, because he had a squash game with his dad. When I first met him, I thought I had found something extraordinary. I was 22 years old, studying abroad in a country where I knew absolutely nobody, and he seemed like a miracle. He was emotional in a way I had never experienced before. He would cry when he talked about his feelings for me. He would tell me I was the most beautiful person he had ever seen, that meeting me had changed his entire life, that he had never felt this way about anyone. Looking back now, I should have questioned why someone would be so intensely attached after only a few weeks, but I was lonely and overwhelmed, and his attention felt like a lifeline. I had moved for university with almost nothing. My family back home was supportive emotionally, but could not help me financially. I was working 20 hours a week at a campus cafe while carrying a full course load, and every day felt like I was drowning. My student accommodation was basic, shared with 4 other people I barely knew. I would come home exhausted, make instant noodles for dinner, and fall asleep while trying to study. It was the hardest period of my life. Meanwhile, he lived in a nice flat that his parents paid for completely. They also gave him a generous allowance for food, entertainment, everything. His mother lived just an hour away and would visit regularly with home-cooked meals. He had a large friend group from his first year that I slowly got absorbed into. Compared to my isolation and struggle, his life seemed comfortable and easy. At first, he seemed understanding about my situation. He would tell me how strong I was, how much he admired me for working so hard. But gradually, things shifted. He started to get upset when I could not spend time with him because I had work shifts. He would cry and say that I was choosing money over him, that if I really loved him, I would find a way. When I tried to explain that I needed the money to survive, to pay rent and buy food, he would accuse me of not prioritizing our relationship. The emotional intensity that had felt romantic at the beginning started to feel suffocating. He was mean sometimes, in ways that confused me. He would make comments about my clothes, saying they looked cheap or that I should dress better. He would criticize the food I made, even though I was cooking the only things I could afford. When I got upset, he would immediately break down crying, saying he was sorry, that he only said those things because he wanted the best for me, because he loved me so much that it hurt. And I would end up comforting him, reassuring him that I understood, that I was not angry. I see now how manipulative that pattern was. But at the time, I genuinely believed his tears meant his feelings were deeper and more real than anything I had experienced before. There were moments when I tried to pull away, times when his jealousy became too much, when he would accuse me of flirting with male classmates or get angry if I went anywhere without telling him first. I remember one evening when I told him I needed some space, that the relationship was becoming overwhelming. He showed up at my flat at midnight, crying so hard he could barely speak. He said he could not lose me, that I was the only good thing in his life, that he did not know what he would do without me. My flatmates came out of their rooms because of the noise. I felt embarrassed and pressured, and I told him we could talk about it later. He grabbed my hand and said we needed to resolve it right then, that he could not sleep without knowing we were okay. Eventually, I gave in and said we were fine, just to make him stop crying and leave. That was the pattern. Every time I tried to establish a boundary, he would have an emotional breakdown that was so intense I would just surrender to make it stop. My confusion grew over the months. I would have moments of clarity where I knew something was deeply wrong, but then he would do something sweet and I would doubt myself. He once surprised me with flowers after I had a terrible day at work. He wrote me long letters about how much I meant to him. He would post pictures of us together with captions about being so lucky to have found his soulmate. From the outside, we probably looked like a passionate, devoted couple, but I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind. I was constantly anxious, walking on eggshells, never sure if he was going to be affectionate or cruel. I stopped talking to my family back home about the relationship because I did not know how to explain what was happening. Everything was starting to feel like a performance, like we were actors in a play he had written, and I was too tired and confused to remember my lines. It happened during exam season at the end of my second year. I had been pushing myself too hard for too long, working extra shifts to save money for the summer, staying up late to study, barely eating properly. My immune system finally gave up. It started as a sore throat and headache, which I tried to ignore. But within 24 hours, I was in worse condition than I had ever experienced. My body ached everywhere. I had a fever that made me feel like I was burning from the inside. I was sweating so profusely that my sheets were soaked through. I could not stand up without feeling dizzy. I could not focus my eyes properly. Everything hurt. By terrible coincidence, all 4 of my flatmates were away that particular weekend. One had gone home to visit family. 2 others had gone on a trip together. The 4th was staying with her partner. I was completely alone in the flat. When I woke up that Saturday morning and realized how sick I was, I felt a wave of panic. I tried to get up to get water from the kitchen, but my legs would not hold me. I managed to crawl to the bathroom and then crawled back. That effort alone exhausted me so completely that I lay on my bedroom floor for I do not know how long, too weak to pull myself back into bed. Eventually, I got myself back onto the mattress. My phone was on my desk, too far for me to reach without standing up, which I could not do. I remember lying there feeling my lips cracking, my mouth so dry it hurt, desperately thirsty but unable to help myself. I had never felt so helpless in my entire life. I was scared. I did not know if what I had was dangerous, if I needed to go to hospital, if I was going to be okay. I kept drifting in and out of consciousness, having strange fever dreams. I do not know how much time passed before I heard knocking on the front door. My boyfriend had texted me earlier that morning saying he might stop by, and I had not responded because I had not seen the message. He had a spare key that I had given him months earlier, something I now recognize was a mistake. He let himself in and called my name. I tried to call back, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. He eventually found me in my bedroom. His face when he saw me is something I will never forget. He looked disgusted. I was lying there in a shirt soaked through with sweat, my hair plastered to my head, my sheets damp beneath me. He stood in the doorway and his first words were asking if I had wet the bed, not asking if I was okay, not showing concern, but immediately assuming something humiliating and saying it out loud. I tried to explain that it was sweat from my fever, but I could barely speak. I felt a wave of shame wash over me on top of everything else. I felt disgusting and pathetic. He came a bit closer but did not touch me. He asked what was wrong, and I whispered that I was really sick, that I had a high fever, that I could not get up. He looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to leave. I could see him calculating something in his mind. Then he told me he had plans that afternoon. He was meeting his father to play squash at 2 o'clock. It was something they did regularly. He said he had to leave soon to drive to the sports club. I could not believe what I was hearing. I begged him to stay. I told him I was scared, that I was all alone, that I needed help. I asked him to please reschedule with his father just this once. My voice was breaking and I was starting to cry, which made my headache worse. He looked annoyed. He said his father was already on his way to the club and it would be rude to cancel last minute. He said I would be fine, that I just needed to rest and drink water. I begged him again. I told him I could not even get to the kitchen for water, that I could not stand up. I pleaded with him to stay for just an hour, for even half an hour. He sighed like I was being unreasonable. Then he left my bedroom and I heard him in the kitchen. He came back with a glass of water and put it on my bedside table. He told me to drink that and try to sleep, and that he would text me later. I grabbed his hand and tried one more time, whispering, please, please do not leave me alone like this. He pulled his hand away and said he really had to go, and then he left. I lay there listening to the front door close, listening to his footsteps fading away, and I felt something break inside me. Not my heart breaking in a romantic way, but something clearer and colder. A illusion shattering. I realized with perfect clarity that this person did not love me. He could not love me. Someone who loved me would not leave me helpless and frightened and sick. Someone who loved me would cancel a game, would stay, would take care of me. All those tears, all those dramatic declarations, all those times he said he could not live without me. They were all empty. They were all about him and his needs and his feelings. When I needed something from him, when I needed actual care and not just words, he chose a recreational activity with his father over my well-being. It was so clear and so devastating. I do not remember much of the rest of that day. I drifted in and out of sleep, sipping water when I could reach the glass. At some point, I managed to text one of my flatmates explaining I was very sick and alone. She felt terrible and offered to come back, but she was 4 hours away visiting family and I told her not to. I survived. By Sunday morning, my fever had broken slightly and I could at least walk to the kitchen. By Monday, I was functional enough to go to the campus medical center, where they confirmed I had a severe viral infection and gave me advice for managing it. I recovered slowly over the next week. My boyfriend texted me Saturday evening asking how I was feeling. I did not respond. He texted again Sunday morning. Monday, he started calling. By Tuesday, he showed up at my flat, confused about why I was ignoring him. I let him in because I did not have the energy to fight at the door. He immediately started asking what was wrong, why I was being distant, if he had done something to upset me. I stared at him and asked if he seriously did not understand. He looked blank. I told him that he had left me when I needed him most, that I had been terrified and helpless, and he had chosen a game over me. He immediately got defensive. He said it was not just a game, it was time with his father and I was being unfair. He said I was being dramatic about being sick, that everyone gets ill sometimes, that I was fine now, so clearly it was not that serious. He said I was trying to make him feel guilty for having a life outside our relationship. I felt exhausted listening to him. I realized he was never going to understand because he was incapable of putting himself in my position. I told him I wanted to break up. His reaction was immediate and extreme. He started crying, harder than I had ever seen. He dropped to his knees and grabbed my hands and begged me not to do this. He said he loved me more than anything, that I was his whole world, that he would do anything to make it right. He said he should have stayed, that he knew it was wrong, that he would never make that mistake again. He was sobbing so hard he was hyperventilating. Part of me wanted to comfort him out of habit, but another part of me, the part that had woken up during my fever, stayed cold and distant. I told him it was not just about that one day. It was about the whole pattern, the way he made everything about himself, the way he guilt-tripped me constantly, the way he criticized me and then cried so I would apologize to him, the way his love was all big gestures and emotions but no actual support or care. He insisted I was wrong, that I was remembering things incorrectly, that he had always been there for me. The more he talked, the clearer it became that I needed to get out. But leaving was not simple. Over the next weeks and months, he made it incredibly difficult. He would show up at my flat unannounced unannounced. He would wait outside the building where I worked. He sent me dozens of messages every day, alternating between begging me to come back and being angry at me for throwing away what we had. He told our mutual friends that I had broken his heart over nothing, that I was cruel and cold. Some of them stopped talking to me, believing his version of events. He told me I had ruined his life, that he was depressed because of me, that I owed it to him to at least talk things through properly. Every time I weakened and agreed to meet him to talk, it would turn into hours of him crying and manipulating and making me feel like I was the terrible person. I would leave those conversations feeling confused again, doubting myself. It took me months to fully extract myself, to block his number, to avoid places I knew he would be. During that time, his behavior got worse. The mask came fully off. He would send me messages calling me horrible names. He would tell me that no one else would ever love me. He would say I was using him and then discarding him. He created fake social media accounts to contact me when I blocked him. He told people intimate details about our relationship to humiliate me. Going through that abusive period actually helped me in a strange way. It confirmed absolutely that I had made the right decision. If he had just accepted the breakup sadly and moved on, maybe I would have doubted myself forever. But his extreme reaction, his inability to let go, his cruelty when he could not control me anymore, it all proved that his love had never been about me. It was about possession and control. Everything I had felt confused about suddenly made sense. It took me over a year after that relationship ended to feel like myself again. I threw myself into finishing my degree and my work. I spent time with the friends who had stuck by me. I went to counseling through the university services and started to understand what emotional abuse looked like, why I had been vulnerable to it, how to recognize red flags in the future. I started to rebuild my sense of self-worth that had been slowly destroyed over those months with him. I was not looking for another relationship. I was honestly scared of getting involved with anyone again, but I met someone through a study group in my final year. He was quiet and steady, the opposite of my ex in every way. We became friends first. He would offer to share his notes if I missed a lecture. He would invite me to join him and his friends for coffee, but never made me feel pressured to come. Slowly, carefully, we started spending more time together. What struck me most was how calm everything felt. There was no intensity, no drama, no grand declarations. When we started dating, it happened naturally. He asked me out for dinner, and when I said yes, he smiled and said he was happy. That was it. No tears, no speeches about destiny, just simple, honest pleasure. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the controlling behavior to start, but it never did. When I needed to work, he would say, okay, and make plans for another time. When I was stressed about exams, he would drop off snacks at the library without making a big deal of it. When I talked about missing home, he would listen without trying to make it about himself. The difference became most clear when I got sick again the following winter. Nothing as severe as before, just a bad cold, but I was stuck in bed feeling miserable. He came over with soup and medicine and tea. He sat with me and we watched movies. When I fell asleep, he stayed and made sure I was okay. He did not act like it was a huge sacrifice or like I owed him something for caring for me. It was just natural to him that if someone you care about is sick, you help them. I cried that evening, not from being sick, but from the realization of how different this was from what I had accepted before. We have been married now for 3 years. Our relationship is not perfect because no relationship is, but it is built on actual care and respect. He brings me sunflowers sometimes because he knows they are my favorite. He brings me little treats he thinks I will like. When I am struggling with work, he encourages me and believes in me. When we argue, we talk about it like adults. Nobody cries or manipulates or threatens. He has never once made me feel like loving me is a burden he is heroically bearing. He just loves me in quiet, steady, reliable ways. Ways that matter. I think about my ex sometimes not because I miss him, but because that relationship taught me something important. We often talk about relationships ending because of what someone did. They cheated, they lied, they hit you, they stole from you. Those are clear betrayals. But sometimes the most important thing is what someone does not do. My ex did not stay when I was sick. He did not reschedule a game to care for me. He did not put my needs above his convenience even once. He did not build me up or support me. He did not give me thoughtful gifts or remember what mattered to me. He did not respect my boundaries. He did not take responsibility for his behavior. He did not love me in any way that actually counted, but he was very good at performing love. The crying, the dramatic speeches, the social media posts, the big gestures. He knew how to make it look and feel like intense devotion. I was vulnerable and lonely, and I mistook performance for substance. I thought the intensity of his emotions meant the depth of his love. I thought his inability to let me go meant he cared deeply. I did not understand that real love is not about grand gestures or theatrical displays. It is about showing up. It is about staying when things are hard. It is about doing small things consistently that make someone's life better. When you are in a relationship with someone who loves the idea of being in love more than they love you, it can take a long time to see it, especially if they are good at the performance, especially if you want to believe it is real. But eventually something happens that pulls back the curtain. For me, it was being left alone and sick. For someone else, it might be a different crisis, a different moment when they need their partner to be there and their partner chooses not to be. I want to tell anyone who is in a confusing relationship where things feel intense intense but also painful, where you are walking on eggshells, where you are constantly anxious but your partner keeps telling you how much they love you. Pay attention to what they do not do. Do they not listen when you talk about your problems? Do they not respect your need for space? Do they not support your goals and dreams? Do they not make sacrifices for you the way they demand you sacrifice for them? Do they not stay when you need them? The absence of care is just as telling as the presence of harm. Sometimes more so because it is easier to hide. Someone can avoid hitting you or cheating on you and still not actually love you. They can say all the right words and make all the right gestures and still be fundamentally selfish. You cannot build a real relationship on performance. Eventually, real life happens. Someone gets sick, loses their job, experiences grief, needs help. That is when you find out if the love was real. I am grateful now for getting sick that day. I know that sounds strange, but if it had not happened, I might have stayed in that relationship for years. I might have married him. The thought makes me feel cold. Instead, that terrible day gave me clarity. It cut through all the confusion and manipulation and showed me the simple truth. He did not love me. And realizing that gave me permission to leave. Breaking up with him was the best decision I ever made. Not just because it ended a bad relationship, but because it taught me what I deserved. It taught me to value consistency over intensity. It taught me that real love is quiet and steady and shows up when it matters. It taught me to trust my instincts when something feels wrong, even if I cannot immediately articulate why. It taught me that I am worthy of actual care, not just the performance of it. My life now is so much better than I could have imagined back then. I have a partner who genuinely cares about me, not about the idea of me or about having someone to perform for. I have rebuilt relationships with friends and family that I had neglected while I was trapped in that confusing dynamic. I have confidence in myself and my judgment. I know now that love should not make you feel crazy. It should not make you doubt yourself constantly. It should not require you to beg for basic care and respect. To anyone reading this who sees parts of their own relationship in my story, I want you to know that you are not crazy. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If you are being told that someone loves you but their actions do not match their words, trust the actions. If you are constantly confused and walking on eggshells and feeling anxious, that is not what love feels like. If someone makes you feel like you are asking for too much when you asked for basic kindness and support, they are wrong. You deserve someone who stays when you are sick, who reschedules plans if you need them, who does small, thoughtful things just because they care, who does not make you beg for attention or affection or respect, who does not weaponize their emotions to control you, who loves you in ways that are quiet and steady and real, not someone who performs love, someone who actually does it. That day when my ex left me sick and alone was the worst day of that relationship, but it was also the day that saved me, because sometimes you need to see clearly what someone will not do for you to finally understand that what they say does not matter. Love is action. Love is staying. Love is showing up. Everything else is just theater.